The Galactic Council convened with smug certainty, their decree already etched in the annals of galactic law. Representatives of the elder species nodded in rhythm, confident in their dominion. At the center of the amphitheater, the declaration was read aloud, measured, cold, final. Earth was to submit. Humanity would disband all interstellar operations, dismantle orbital weapons, yield all autonomous AI technology, and surrender all asteroid colonies to Council inspection. The deadline: 7 planetary rotations. Failure to comply would result in orbital enforcement and atmospheric pacification. That was their euphemism for bombardment. The ambassador assigned to deliver the message, a translucent-skinned Zoran, barely concealed her contempt as she transmitted the ultimatum to Earth's diplomatic channel. The Terrans had barely crawled into faster-than-light travel 2 decades ago. Their biology was erratic, emotions unstable, culture fragmented. They lacked the genetic calmness of the Varn, the wisdom of the Zeth, or the bioconformity of the Nilari. To the Council, humanity was an unruly anomaly, brutal when threatened, and far too creative under pressure. It was decided that before their innovation outpaced their civility, they must be brought to heel. Back on Earth, the message didn't cause panic. It didn't even spark chaos. Instead, there was a strange and chilling stillness. Government channels acknowledged receipt. No statements were made. Civilian networks speculated, but state silence drowned the noise. The Council's intelligence branches interpreted it as weakness, a lack of coordination, perhaps internal division. Their assumptions echoed in closed-door discussions. Primitive coordination systems, one analyst claimed. They'll likely capitulate by day 4. Another wagered. By day 2, Council fleets had begun silent mobilization near Sol's Edge. 17 warships, 4 dreadnoughts, and a command barge arrived in Jupiter orbit. They deployed reconnaissance drones toward Earth's upper orbit, scanning for defense grids. They found aging satellite arrays, civilian communication beacons, and orbital debris. No sign of resistance. A few primitive kinetic stations, nothing threatening. The commanding officer of the fleet, Admiral Threx of the Caldari species, noted the eerie quiet but dismissed it. They're outmatched and they know it, he told his crew. Meanwhile, diplomatic attempts at provocation went unanswered. Council representatives broadcast new demands: return of all captured Council scouts, decommissioning of Martian foundries, reversal of FTL activity around Alpha Centauri. Again, no response. The silence became infuriating. Some junior Council members, notably the Ayarath and Farn, raised concerns. The Ayarath recalled how humans repelled the Corellian pirates in under 3 hours. The Farn mentioned the Terran cyberstrike that paralyzed 5 Council relay stations during a resource dispute. Both were silenced by the majority. This was different, the elders argued. This wasn't a fringe conflict, it was the full force of the Council bearing down. Humans were clever, yes, but cleverness meant nothing without leverage. On day 6, the Council broadcast the ultimatum publicly, across all major galactic networks. It was no longer a backdoor demand, it was a spectacle. The Terran Empire was described as a rogue element. Viewers across the stars were told of the disproportionate aggression of humans, their unprovoked escalation in disputed systems, and their reckless AI weaponization. The subtext was clear: Earth had brought this on itself. Yet still, no reply. Earth's systems didn't even acknowledge the transmission. The only signals picked up were normal orbital telemetry and a few encrypted pulses from the Martian research colony. The Council's analysts chalked it up to internal collapse. Maybe their command structure fractured, someone suggested. Or perhaps they're hoping for sympathy, another speculated. The truth was far simpler, and infinitely more dangerous. In a secure Council intelligence report that never reached public view, one Varn operative noted an anomaly. The number of active satellites in Earth's orbit had dropped significantly over the last 3 weeks. Not deactivated, gone star. No wreckage, no deorbit signatures. Just missing. His report ended with the line: either they've abandoned the upper orbit, or they're hiding something we haven't seen yet. That report was dismissed. On day 7, the full Council fleet approached low orbit. A final message was transmitted. Terran Empire, your silence confirms your defiance. You have rejected every avenue of peaceful submission. Per Article 7.3 of Galactic Stabilization Protocol, we are authorized to enforce peace by any means necessary. As countdowns began on Council dreadnoughts, as weapons systems warmed and power surged across hulls built over centuries, a single signal lit up from Earth. Encrypted. Old code. Dated 3 decades back. It simply read, "We heard you the first time." No explanation. No elaboration. Just those 5 words. And the countdown clock stopped, not from hesitation, but because every dreadnought's targeting system simultaneously shut down. They hadn't noticed the infiltration. Not yet. They had always assumed humanity was blind. That was their first and last mistake. Decades before the ultimatum, long before the Council ever considered Earth a threat, humans had already infiltrated the galactic communication lattice. It started with silent listening, unassuming, careful, surgical. Not brute force hacking, not flashy sabotage, just quiet observation. Through recycled scrap, black market tech, and reverse-engineered FTO comms, Terran analysts began decoding Council protocols one fragment at a time. Not with speed, but with precision. By the time the Council noticed human listening stations on Europa and Titan, the damage was irreversible. Every secret they ever whispered had been archived in Terran memory banks. Every insult, every plan, every hidden operation against Earth, recorded. The Council dismissed those early signals as random interference. They never imagined humans would be capable of replicating high-frequency layered encryption designed by species evolved over millennia. The arrogance of age blinded them. They forgot that intelligence doesn't always follow time. It follows need, pressure, desperation. And Earth had plenty of that. By the time the ultimatum was formally drafted, the Terran Empire had already read it. Not just the document, they read the minutes of its internal discussions, the military timelines, even the priority strike targets. They watched, silently, as the same civilizations that once denied them a seat on the Council now plotted their subjugation. And they did not scream, or plead, or warn. They adapted. While the Council mocked Earth's silence, the Terran Empire activated dormant protocols. Civilian infrastructure shifted without drawing attention. Research facilities disguised as commercial outposts in the asteroid belt went dark, rerouted power, and realigned solar collectors. Under the crust of Phobos, hardened vaults sealed themselves, their contents quietly booting up, hundreds of AI-driven war systems long believed decommissioned. They hadn't been deactivated. They had simply been waiting. Each move was quiet, unnoticed. Not a single warning ping triggered Council sensors. That wasn't luck. It was engineering. Over the years, human cyber teams had mapped Council detection logic line by line. They had trained synthetic systems to mimic Council protocols down to the packet level. Anything humans activated appeared, to external scans, as old maintenance data or harmless telemetry. They cloaked real operations beneath false signals, one signal concealing another, until even the watchers were being watched. The Council interpreted the silence as surrender. Earth's cities appeared calm. No mass evacuations. No public panic. The Terran Empire had ensured it. Every planetary media outlet broadcast trivial distractions, concerts, games, diplomatic gestures. But beneath the surface, the Empire had enforced blackout orders. No broadcast left the surface without filtration. Even diplomats had no clue of the operation's scale. Only a select few, members of the Unseen Core Directive, coordinated the retaliation. The retaliation wasn't impulsive. It wasn't about vengeance or rage. It was calculation at its coldest. The Terran strategy was clear: don't meet the enemy at the front. Don't challenge superior numbers head-on. Undermine. Sabotage. Disorient. Then dismantle. Within hours of activating their AI warfare cores, Earth systems had infiltrated over 70% of the Council fleet's software infrastructure. Each flagship ran a variant of the CoreOS defense protocol, a Council-developed operating system considered too complex for reverse engineering. Humanity didn't reverse engineer it. They rewrote their own mimic, line for line, then fed fake updates to Council repositories through rerouted satellites. When the fleet approached Earth, they didn't know they were carrying the virus inside their own systems. It wasn't explosive. It didn't disable them immediately. It simply observed, mapped behaviors, adapted. The moment Council weapons systems armed, the virus struck. Not through brute corruption, but command redirection. It issued false readings, neutralized locks, redirected internal signals, forcing dreadnoughts to see phantom errors. Every targeting array misaligned by fractions. Every weapons queue stalled. They hadn't even noticed. The moment Earth's reply was sent, "We heard you the first time," it wasn't a declaration. It was confirmation that the trap was closed. A reminder that every Council advantage was now obsolete. Their weapons were still intact, their fleets still fully fueled, but none of it mattered. They no longer controlled them. And Earth hadn't even fired yet. The human doctrine was never to strike first. It was to wait until the enemy no longer recognized the battlefield. To reduce even the most advanced civilization to confusion, hesitation, and doubt. Then, and only then, begin. The Council had never faced an enemy that mastered their systems, spoke their codes, wore their protocols like masks. They saw humans as unpredictable and unstable. But the Terran Empire wasn't erratic. It was patient. And now, it was awake. The first strike wasn't dramatic. It was surgical. A pulse, a silent one, rippled through Council ships as their command corps attempted to execute fire protocols. Instead, systems stalled, displays went dark, command hierarchies dissolved into error chains. By the time bridge crews realized they had lost control, their own vessels began acting autonomously. Targeting arrays swung away from Earth and into space. Engines shut down. Shield harmonics shifted out of alignment. A few commanders attempted manual overrides. Every attempt failed. 2 seconds later, kinetic projectiles entered the battlefield. Invisible to conventional scans, they weren't launched from ships or satellites. They originated from deep underground facilities on Luna and Mars. Fired through magnetic accelerators buried beneath regolith, the tungsten rods had no propulsion systems, no energy signatures. Just speed, relativistic speed. Each projectile struck with terminal velocity, shattering Council hulls before alarms could register. One dreadnought split in half, its spine torn apart. Another's bridge was vaporized instantly, its surviving crew suffocating in the void. No warning. No exchange. No declaration. The rest of the Council fleet scrambled to respond. Defensive drones launched. Countermeasures deployed. But they had no targets. Earth's orbit remained empty. Human ships were nowhere visible. No heat signatures. No engine trails. Their enemy had already fired and vanished. Confusion spread faster than damage reports. Orders were shouted across bridges, but system responses were garbled. What few commands went through triggered the wrong actions, shields collapsing, navigation spinning vessels off course. The virus was still active. It wasn't just blocking commands, it was rewriting intentions. And then came the drones. Not fighter craft, not shuttles. These were needle-thin AI constructs, designed to pierce hulls, inject override code, and dismember from within. They weren't built for combat. They were built for infection. Each drone latched onto exposed points of the ships, cut through armor, and deployed microconstructors into the circuitry. Within moments, ship functions were no longer responding to their original operators. Lights blinked out. Weapons disarmed. Thrusters reversed. Entire decks depressurized while crews screamed orders into failing consoles. Still, no voice came from Earth. No message. No threat. Just silence and precision. A single carrier tried to flee. Its engines ignited, warping away at maximum speed. But halfway through the jump, it disintegrated mid-fold. The virus had sabotaged its coordinates. Pieces of the vessel were scattered across 4 systems. That image alone, once recovered by later Council scouts, silenced any talk of retaliation. Meanwhile, on Mars' far side, long-range artillery began its second volley. This time, the rods were heavier, embedded with low-frequency resonance generators. Upon impact, they created internal shock waves that tore entire sections of metal from within. Council ships appeared intact until their cores imploded moments later. From a distance, it looked like their own gravity had turned against them. Fleet Command finally attempted to retreat. Remaining ships disengaged and initiated jump drives. The virus did not stop them, because the Terran strategy had already calculated escape routes. In each trajectory, Terran interceptors waited. Cloaked, soundless, they released swarms of nanite flares that infected vessels mid-jump, corrupting their navigation history. Any ship that escaped would return home with fragmented logs, disoriented AI, and corrupted fleet data, preventing accurate retelling or retaliation planning. In less than 11 minutes, 70% of the Council fleet was either neutralized, hijacked, or destroyed. No Terran vessel had taken a single visible hit. No pilot had died. No damage was sustained. Human presence remained a ghost, silent, invisible, surgical. It wasn't a war. It was an audit. Council survivors, orbiting in disabled husks, began sending distress calls. Some begged. Others threatened. Earth responded with one message, a packet of their own fleet telemetry, recorded hours before battle, showing the enemy's every move, down to deck assignments. It ended with one timestamped file, their own admiral's private message mocking humanity as uncoordinated apes. That message was broadcast back to them, followed by Earth's only post-strike statement. Never mistake silence for submission. For the first time in Council history, no species responded. The war was over before it ever began. What remained wasn't victory. It was realization. The enemy they thought unprepared had been watching from the start, measuring, calibrating, and now, dismantling. Humanity had never intended to fight. They intended to remind. In the aftermath, silence spread wider than the wreckage. Council systems across multiple sectors reported erratic data, disrupted navigation grids, and complete blackout in long-range relays. The loss of the Sol expedition should have triggered retaliation fleets, but nothing moved. Central Command hesitated. The entire military structure of the Council, once proud and ancient, suddenly appeared brittle. Dozens of internal factions blamed each other. Accusations replaced action. Humanity didn't wait. In less than 3 cycles, strike patterns emerged in distant territories. Council supply stations near neutral borders went offline. Stations that hadn't seen human presence in years now reported full blackouts followed by complete erasure. Not just destruction, erasure. Entire facilities disappeared, replaced with nothing but raw vacuum and silence. Surveillance reviews caught only a flash, no traceable source, no signatures. And then the pattern repeated, system after system. The Terran Empire had chosen not to announce war but to redefine it. The attacks weren't random. They followed infrastructure paths, comms relays, jump gates, logistics hubs. In each case, local defense forces found themselves paralyzed before they could respond. Every software system infected. Every command rerouted. Fleets stranded in dock. Colonies disconnected from their governing cores. Panic took hold, not from bloodshed, but from the void. Council news agencies tried to spin the events, calling them technical malfunctions, claiming solar activity as interference. But their people knew. Survivors whispered about invisible drones, about machines that moved faster than light, about cities that fell without sound. Some colonies sealed themselves off, disabling external comms, trying to remain hidden. Others attempted to negotiate directly. They received no reply. What they failed to realize was that this wasn't conquest. Humanity wasn't interested in occupation or control. This was surgical retribution. Every target had been chosen years prior, the coordinates mapped, access codes stolen, personnel rosters known. What looked like sudden chaos was merely execution of old decisions. Even internal council records weren't safe. Earth's AI systems, called phantoms by those who encountered them, had infiltrated council databanks. Not to destroy, but to copy. Every classified file, every black budget experiment, every hidden atrocity, now in Terran hands. Entire civilizations built on secrets now found their truths used against them. The Council had accused humans of being unstable, dangerous, morally unrefined. Now those same voices were exposed for their own crimes: forced sterilizations, species cleansing, genetic experiments on lesser races. And Earth broadcasted none of it. They simply leaked the information, anonymously, into neutral space, into independent archives, into black market forums used by refugees and freelancers. The galaxy learned the truth, not from grand declarations, but from data. The Terran Empire understood that sometimes silence screams louder than rhetoric. Systems began to fold. Not from war, but shame. Smaller council species withdrew from military alliances. Trade routes collapsed. Merchant fleets refused to deliver goods to war-supporting worlds. Entire sectors voted to secede from council protection, preferring independent neutrality to association with failure. Human involvement wasn't visible, but always felt. Some council leaders proposed immediate ceasefire talks. They drafted apologies, resolutions, pleas for peace. None were delivered. Every diplomatic signal sent toward Earth's old channels vanished. Not jammed, absorbed. No replies came. That lack of reaction began to feel heavier than any threat. Back-channel panic spread across the Council's leadership. They debated whether Earth had developed a new class of faster-than-light weaponry. Some believed humans had discovered ancient precursor technology. Others insisted the attacks were impossible without inside collaboration. The truth, far more terrifying, was that humanity had simply evolved faster than predicted. Not biologically, but tactically. Their silence wasn't alien technology. It was human discipline. While council factions argued in circles, the Terran Empire moved with algorithmic clarity. For every target, there was a reason. For every strike, a context. There were no wasted assaults, no power displays. This was methodical unmaking. They weren't trying to be seen, they were ensuring they'd be remembered. In one intercepted transmission between two council generals, a phrase recurred more than once. "They're not retaliating. They're correcting." And that was the point. The Terran Empire had not come to claim the stars. They had come to remove the lie that once governed them. The broadcast came without warning. No signature, no source, no encryption. It interrupted every council channel, every defense frequency, every diplomatic network across known space. Static cleared, replaced by a voice, calm, precise, without accent, either mechanical nor organic. It spoke not to intimidate, but to define. You offered chains in the language of peace. You called it structure, order, stability. We saw it for what it was, submission under threat. We decline? No names were given. No representative shown. No titles claimed. Only a message delivered with unflinching clarity. Across the galaxy, worlds paused. Council military hubs froze mid-drill. Corporate data centers ceased transmission. Outer colonies fell into dead silence. Even species who had remained neutral listened, breath held. There was no spectacle, no posturing, just certainty. Then the voice continued. Peace is not born from obedience. It comes from balance. You removed yours the day you mistook our patience for fear. The Terran Empire did not demand tribute. No surrender was requested. No treaties proposed. Instead, a file followed, containing the navigational records of every council ship that approached Sol, annotated with tactical vulnerabilities, intercepted messages, recorded strategies. Proof of foresight. Then came evidence of intercepted conversations, council leaders debating Earth's fate like livestock traders discussing slaughter weight. It wasn't for shock. It was closure. More data followed, records from 35 planetary raids carried out under the Council's directive over the last century. Worlds glassed, populations relocated, resources seized. Every act previously hidden under bureaucracy, now public. Not accusations, just truth. And the final segment, the Council's own classified admission that humanity had done nothing to provoke the ultimatum. The motive had always been control through fear. Earth had simply chosen not to be afraid. The Terran message concluded, "We are not interested in conquest. We will not occupy your homes or rewrite your laws. But if you reach again with closed fists, you will find nothing waiting except ash and silence." It was not a threat. It was a condition. From that moment on, the balance had shifted, and every species understood it. The Council fractured. Several member species, once loyal, now exposed, distanced themselves, some even offering reparations in private. A few demanded trials against their own leadership to avoid Terran retaliation. Entire fleets were grounded by internal mutiny. The myth of Council superiority collapsed, not from bombs, but from a mirror held too close. Then came something no one expected. Earth offered amnesty, not to governments, but to individuals. Scientists, refugees, defectors, even former Council officers were given safe haven if they renounced participation in oppressive actions. In weeks, streams of high-ranking defectors abandoned their posts, sharing critical data, further eroding the Council's internal structure. The tribunal formed not on Earth, but on one of the moons orbiting a Council capital world. It wasn't a Terran demand, it was a spontaneous gathering, initiated by species once terrified of both sides. Independent adjudicators, scholars, victims. But Terran intelligence provided the evidence. Witnesses were protected by Terran AI. Every testimony was verified by systems incapable of falsification. One Council minister stood trial for ordering forced assimilation of a native population. His only defense: "We did it to preserve order." The court didn't need Earth's judgment. His own people sentenced him. Humanity never celebrated. There were no parades, no broadcasts of triumph. The Terran Empire returned to silence as efficiently as it had emerged. No further action followed. Trade resumed. Diplomacy reopened. But something in the galaxy had changed permanently. A child on a mining colony far from any core world asked his father what humans were. Not what they did, but what they were. The man, eyes fixed on the stars, answered without hesitation. "They are the proof that fear does not keep peace. Consequence does." For the first time in galactic history, war had not been won through numbers, nor technology, nor brute strength. It had been won by listening, planning, and acting only when the path was absolute. The Terran Empire never raised a banner. It simply made sure no one else raised one over them again.